Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's virtual group circle. And our focus this session is on divine alchemy and the opportunity to do some deeper work around transmuting issues of separation that are coming up for you. The theme that feels foremost, certainly in my mind right now, is the racism that is, we could call it systemic racism in the United States. And bring that forward into your awareness if you'd like, or whatever is up for you right now. I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect in this way. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Ken Stone. I'm a spiritual teacher, an author, and a healer. And if you haven't already, I certainly invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Wherever you're watching this, in the description is a link. And if you click that link, it'll subscribe you into YouTube. And if you click the bell to be notified, you'll be notified anytime I post a new video or go live, which I tend to do at least once a week. Glad you're here. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in live, and also everyone who is participating in the replay. I've already had a few people say hi on the chat through YouTube. Anyone else who'd like to check in and say hi on Facebook, on my professional page, on Twitter, or on the YouTube channel, would love to interact with you and say hi. Before we do anything else, let's gather in our circle formally, shall we? Setting everything else aside, energetically, emotionally, physically, and otherwise. As always, please don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort during this or any time we're together. It's not safe to do so. And even more than that, because you never know when you're going to go to sleep, right? People talk about that all the time when they're in session with me. I feel like I'm going to sleep. It's my contention you're not really going to sleep, but whatever is happening, it's not safe to drive a car or operate heavy equipment. That's clear. But even more than that, give yourself this opportunity to sink in and resonate and have an experience of the divine within, of that more undistorted expression that is coursing through your very being on every level, known and unknown. And so as we make our way into the circle now, energetically, I just invite you to close your eyes, begin breathing in and out through the nostrils if it's comfortable for you. And also, if it's comfortable for you, you can put your palms up towards the sky. It's a great receiving position. And as we find our places in the circle, it always feels so good to sit with you. Let's do a little bit of breathing, shall we? Deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And I say let it all go, even if it's been the best day of your life. Why? So that you can open up to an even more complete experience of the divine as you, all the way out to the count of 8. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. You could think of this breathing process as a way of centering, as a way of reconnecting to self, a way of calming the inner dynamic before we begin meditating together here in just a few minutes. I'm so glad you're here. It's such an honor to sit with you, to explore with and without words. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. Before we start with divine connecting breath, with meditating together, I just want to invite a level of awareness that might come in for you. And rather than resist it, I want to encourage you to just bring it in, to open up to it more fully. As you may know, if you've done this before with me, divine connecting breath is about that movement from a default state of separation. Here I am, separate myself. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, in my home right now, in my writing studio. You're wherever you are in the world. We're separate. Obviously, we're at some distance to one another, even if you're here in Colorado. And we're separate from other people on the planet, and we're separate from the divine. That's the default state of the illusion of separation, right? To move from that state into an awareness, or more importantly, an experience. Yeah, awareness is interesting from my perspective. It's compelling, but even more compelling is the actual experience of the divine, by whatever name, whatever your beliefs are, your perspective, it's all good. The divine, the nothing, the emptiness, the nameless one, whatever, the everything. That intimate connection between you and the divine. But to get there, we open with an awareness of the breath of the planet. First, the breath is becoming you and you're becoming the breath. And then there's the breath of the planet. And then there's the relationship between the breath of the planet and individual people. And then the relationship between you and the breath of the planet and you and everyone and everything. And it's really easy to get caught up in that dynamic of thinking, well, those are people I don't want to connect with, or those people have stuff that I've dealt with in my life, or whatever it is. I'm not trying to project it on you. I'm just trying to acknowledge it happens all the time. Anytime I teach with an open line, or people can chime in and unmute themselves and ask a question, the question always comes up. Well, wait a second. What about those people? Or, I don't think I want to share energy with other people, or all sorts of things like that. And today, I want to invite you to accumulate, to carry that with you into transmission. And you'll know that we're opening into transmission when I say the words, for whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. And then these words, let's begin. Now we're opening into a deeper experience. At the point when I say let's begin, now my description of that would be I'm witnessing, I'm sitting with you at a deeper level. One way of saying it is that I've become aware of the aspect of me that is expressing as all of us in this circle. And not just those of us who are here now on whatever this is, the 3rd of June, 2020 at 5:10 p.m. Eastern Time, US. I mean, all of us now, as in everyone who's ever listening to this right now. We are all participating now. So for me, the illusion of time and space disappears. You are not separate from me, nor is time an element in this experience either. And the point of this is that if you can bring that experience of resistance or dissonance in to transmission, that becomes an aspect of not just an aspect, an essential aspect of the alchemy that is possible when we sit together. From my perspective, the way I would describe it is that we're having a deeper experience of the divine within, the divine expression as me or through me, if you want to think of it that way, in transmission, is enlivening the divine in you. And that divine presence is like a fire or a light that is so brilliant, so hot that it consumes everything. It enlivens everything and it consumes everything that is not real. That is to say, everything held in separation. And so, and I see comments coming in and I'm going to respond in just a minute here. And maybe this is a whole new format. Maybe what we're going to do is I'm going to open and then we're going to have this and then we're going to meditate and go into transmission. I don't know. I feel like I want to open into transmission, but I had to say these things first. So the point is, so hi, John. Hi, Susan. Hi, Gary. Hi, Angelica. And more people, Misharda and Yanya saying hi too. And I see some questions coming up. I promise I'll get to them. So the point is, if we can carry those points of resistance, we have one of the two key elements for divine alchemy to take place. The one, and it's a function of a polarity. So it may not make sense intellectually, but I'm telling you energetically, spiritually, it is profound. So for me, one of those things that I'm bringing in today into the circle relates to racism. And for me, when I'm exploring that, I mean, I see it in the world. It's a source of great pain and anguish for me, and so on, to see it and to see George Floyd's death and so on, or to hear of that and to sit with the pain of that, and even more to open up to the pain of what it is to be a Black person. I don't have a direct experience of that, at least not in this lifetime, and none that I can remember in any conscious way. To sit with that and to try to imagine what that is. For me, it's been a lot of tears this week, a lot of sadness. It's very difficult for me, at least, to open up to that level of grief. It's been hard. And I'm not trying to say, boo-hoo, poor me. I'm just trying to acknowledge that level, hundreds of years of suffering and oppression. The point is, whatever that is for you, it might have nothing to do with racism. And for me, it's not the racism out in the world. It's the racism in me. Even I could sit here and say, oh, I'm not racist and so on, but I'm a white man. I mean, I am certainly the beneficiary of white male privilege without a question. And the point isn't to go into all of that. It's to say, this is one of the things that I'm carrying into the circle today within me, not in the world, within me, my experience of that. As I sit with that within myself, and then the other polarity, the other expression in our circle, in transmission, beyond the meditation, into the session, into the transmission, is the experience of the embodied divine. There's the alchemy. That's when whatever the things are that we're holding in separation become transmuted when we feel them. Okay, this is about the end of what I want to say at this point. So I promise we're going to get into meditation here in just a moment, to feel them. And if there's stuff that gets stirred up for you When I start guiding through the part of divine connecting breath where I'm saying the words, with each breath, you are connected to your neighbors and your neighbors' neighbors and everyone on the planet and everything. If there's this thought that comes up or this sensation, this feeling in your awareness, and you think, I don't want to be connected to those people, or not all of those people, or just people that are this, or this, it's fine. Don't resist that. Let it come up and then carry it into transmission. Feel it. Don't try to suppress it. Don't try to work through it in divine connecting breath when we're meditating. Just allow yourself to feel it. And something extraordinary is available to take place within you if you allow yourself to feel that fully as we step in. Okay. That's a lot of words for something pretty simple, but I was feeling it strongly and I wanted to focus on that. Beautiful. More people. Abbas checking in. Wonderful to be with you. And everyone. Okay, let's reset. We're breathing in and out through the nostrils, palms to the sky, eyes are closed. We've taken these 3 successive breaths. Let's take another deep breath in and hold. And then as we release this breath, we are letting go of everything that I just said. We're going to let it all go. Just open more fully into the divine mystery. And as you sink in, just become aware of the cue of breath in front of your face. One breath, another unit of breath, and so on and so forth. You take a breath in, another replaces itself at the end of the cue. And this breath, these units of breath, they are here to serve you, just you. And you'll notice when you draw them in, there's no criteria, there's no condition. It's not a check on what's the color of your skin. What's your gender identity? What's your ethnicity? What are your beliefs? What is your perspective on this political issue? Or did you kick the dog today, or cut somebody off in traffic, or stub your toe and swear? None of it is being asked. The breath is flowing in and serving you completely without any condition or criteria. And then notice, again, in your mind's eye, perhaps it's showing up intuitively or on the visual screen, or you have some sense of it in other ways. However it presents itself, a color could be static or dynamic. If you're assigning a color, maybe it's something not normally present in your body, except perhaps in your eyes. And that color is infusing itself through the cue, meaning the breath, these units of breath are turning this color. It's like almost like food coloring that's being dropped into the breath. It can be quite beautiful. And when you get ready to take your next breath, just be with that breath from the perspective of the color, in through the nostrils, up to the crown, and down in the lungs. And at least for the next few moments, just sit in the lungs and notice as you continue breathing at whatever tempo, in whatever way, at whatever depth resonates for you right now. Notice how that color becomes an indicator of the movement of breath into the body, the lining of the lungs. And if you move time forward, just very gently, smoothly, you'll notice the color migrates through the lungs, through the lining, into the bloodstream, and then eventually to every cell in the body. And there's a simple statement that I can make, and I'm going to describe what can happen here so that you can be aware of it. When I make this statement, just Be present with whatever sensation, bodily or otherwise, awareness that comes in for you, and recognize that that sensation might have an association that you might say, oh, that's resonant or dissonant. In other words, you might agree, you might get confirmation of the statement, or you might have some resistance to it. And notice all the different levels that that awareness comes in at. You don't have to go looking for it with a microscope or searching it. They will present. They will show up for you. However they do, in whatever way, it's perfect. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. Just notice those expressions of resonance, the yes that comes in. Intellectually, it makes sense. Oxygen, lungs, bloodstream, cells of the body. Sure. Visually, intuitively, you may see it. You may know it. You may sense it. You may hear it. You may feel it. Many different ways that sense of that the sensation or the awareness that comes from the yes from that statement present in the body or in the field, in your field. I'll make the statement again. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And if you shift your perspective from inside the lungs and then kind of move back and up away, so you might even be sort of observing yourself, could even back away a little bit further. Notice that this cue of breath draws its next breath as you breathe from ultimately from the breath of the planet. And the breath of the planet isn't just serving you. It's serving your neighbors, neighbors. And just notice as that awareness spreads out, might be geographic, like water just spreading out without barrier through the community, through the region, the continent, the hemisphere, and eventually the entire planet. And with each breath, you are directly connected to each and every person on the planet. And notice the breath of the planet exists outside of time. It's not just here in this dimension. It has always been, and it will always be. The breath of the planet has served everyone who has ever lived and will serve everyone who will ever live. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to every single person, everyone, by your breath. And it's not just people that the breath of the planet serves. The breath of the planet is serving animals and insects and trees and grass and dirt and rocks and water and fish and everything. And so we can say with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet itself. In fact, you might even have a sensation of breathing by and for and of the planet itself. For with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. And notice how the breath of the planet becomes the breath of the cosmos at that edge of our atmosphere. That last speck of breath of the planet touches space directly, and in turn, eventually, every other aspect of space and the cosmos. And so we can say, with each breath, You are connected to everyone and everything throughout all of creation, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine. A light originating perhaps at a tremendous distance at the other side of the cosmos initially, but notice how that light is drawing closer with each breath that you take. Eventually, close enough that you can perceive within that light these twin frequencies that together express as the divine light, the frequency of the divine itself and the frequency of perfect health. Not just perfect health that we understand as human beings, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise, but every iteration known and unknown to us. These twin frequencies intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. Where one is present, so too the other. And as you continue breathing, you can perceive and see this light permeating throughout the entire cosmos, drawing closer and closer with each breath until eventually it connects in, perhaps initially at your nostrils and then instantaneously throughout your entire being at every level known and unknown. With each of the smallest aspects of that light, be it a waveform or a particle, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of your being expression, known or unknown. And the invitation extended then, come return to your natural state of alignment and resonance. And with that, you may even feel the sensation of those artifacts of dissonance falling away and appearing to gather at that universal drain. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same as we observe the divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The artifacts of dissonance appearing to fall away and now departing your field, resonance spreading throughout every aspect of your being. Let's begin. One of the ways that the divine expresses through me is through buzzing hands and feet. And so those things mean something to me. When my hands buzz, it's the outward expression, that is to say, the aspects of the mirror, the body, the mind, the outward expression of our lives. These things are coming into resonance. When my feet buzz, it means energetically things are coming back into a state of alignment and resonance. And those points of feedback are offering that for our collective circle here gathered right here, right now. And so oftentimes I may say, oh, I can sense that wave of resonance moving through, but what that means or how you experience that, I don't know. I have no conscious awareness of it. I just am feeling this macro sense of resonance coming in stronger and stronger. And it's not something that's getting zapped in. It's not being addressed from my perspective in any particular way. It is the truth of who you are expressing spontaneously on every level of your being. And as that integrates more and more, hands start buzzing more and more. You may feel buzzing or tingling or other things. When I'm working with someone individually, I can tell if they've been in physical discomfort. That physical discomfort starts to go away. The pain disappears. And I can actually predict that when my hands start buzzing. So I can already feel a tremendous amount of resonance coming up in the circle. And the invitation here is, at least for a little bit, I would love to respond. If there are questions that are coming up for you, a few more people saying hi. I think it's Janny Rose Joy saying hello or thank you. Yep. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to be with you. I would love if anyone else would like to say hi. I'd love to say hi and acknowledge. I actually, the way that I am live streaming this, I can't see who's online unless you say hi to me, and then I can see who you are, and I'm happy to acknowledge you. In the same way, if you have a question and you'd like to write that in the comments on the YouTube live stream, it's off to the side. If you're watching the replay, it's below the video on YouTube. Facebook, I think it's below no matter live or replay. I'm not really sure how it works on Twitter. I know it works. Gary has said it's working. But how that interaction happens, I'm actually not sure. However that is, though, if you're on Twitter, I'd love to hear from you if you have questions for me. And it doesn't really matter what the question theme is for you. As I said at the beginning, for me, a big theme, a big awareness of dissonance coming up to be integrated relates to systemic racism in the United States, and becoming aware of that within myself and allowing myself to feel that when in transmission. Whatever's coming up for you to feel, certainly I invite you to fully feel that and be with it. Okay. I just want to sink in here a little bit. There are a couple other things. I think I'm going to mention these now because I sort of have the sense that we're going to be doing some work, and I don't want to disrupt the work at the end by talking, covering logistics stuff. So maybe I can cover that now to give people a few more time to. Oh, and Susan asked a question too. Susan, okay, so I'll cover these things here in just a minute. People are starting to ask questions, and I forgot about Susan. So, okay, so Susan, I'm going to put your question up here. What and when is the conception of my soul? That's a great question. What and when? So the words that I use are inception, and I'm not sure what the difference between conception or inception is. I'll just say this. I don't know, Susan. I don't know. It's a great question. What is the inception of your soul and when was it? I don't know. Here's why that shows up in my awareness. Early on, what does that mean? In 2008 and 2009, I met a man who is a healer, and we became really good friends. We spent a ton of time together, talking about things and in session together, with one another, and then eventually with his clients together. And one of the things that he had a tremendous amount of awareness on was, and is, around entities. And when he used the term entities, many people call them entities. Some people call them dark energy. I hope you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, and I guess I'll leave the question up here. This is what I'm addressing. If you're just tuning in, there's the question right on the screen. So if you want me to talk more about what I mean by this, just make a comment there. Susan or anyone is welcome to tune in. And ask the question. Of course, anyone can tune in, but with regard to this, I'll try to scan and be aware so I can circle back and cover that. Anyway, the point is, then I started working with people individually, and I was working with a lot of people clearing entities. And the experience of clearing entities initially was very rewarding. You clear out the entities, somebody's been having a really, let's just say, a comprehensive experience of dissonance on many different levels. You clear the entities and ta-da, the sun is shining, everything is great. Wonderful things are going on. But almost just like the sun rising the next day, they're back a week later and there are more entities to clear. They're back a couple weeks later. And after a while, I'm just going to tell you what it felt like to me. I didn't like that dynamic because it wasn't that there was a problem with the people that I was working with, or that I wasn't interested in helping people out. It's that I didn't really feel like I was actually helping people. It just felt like I was like, let's slap a band-aid on, let's slap a band-aid on. Like there's this temporary thing happening. And it almost felt like, and I hope this doesn't sound weird or bad, but I sort of felt like I was God's drug dealer. Like come get it, like let's do this thing, and then you're going to have to come back and get more and get more and get more. I didn't like that at all. I wanted to figure out what was going on with that dynamic so that I could explain it to people, and then we could do other kinds of work, but it wasn't work out of necessity. I wanted to be able to explore, and this maybe has a lot to do with my personality, or maybe the reason I'm here, or why God put me here, or why God expresses these gifts for me. I don't know, but I wanted to be doing deeper work with people. I wanted to be supporting, or I just had this sense, I probably couldn't have articulated it this way at the time, but I wanted to be able to support the individuals that I was blessed to have an opportunity to sit with. I wanted to support them in uncovering and experiencing a deeper, their essential connection with the divine. And eventually I became excited about helping people and supporting people and uncovering their gifts and their purpose and their mission and so on. All right, that's all backstory, Susan. So here's where I got to the inception of the soul. So for about a year, I went inward and I was doing this deep inner exploration. And the exploration could be summarized as, God, show me how to get done with entities once and for all. And so I started looking at timelines, like the timeline of someone's life, and nope, entities all over the place there. So then I started looking at the timeline of the soul, and I got back to a point that I now articulate as the inception of the soul. That is the inception of the individuated expression of the divine as you. I recognize that the word soul does not mean the same thing in all cultures and all traditions and so on. I'm talking about the individuated. Some traditions refer to the soul as a collective. That's what's meant by the soul. So perhaps spirit would be a better language piece here. I'm not trying to impose my own. I'm just trying to use my native language, and so we can build a language bridge, because it's not really about the language. It's about the experience of what's going on. All right. So anyway, inception of the soul. I don't know what that means. I just could see prior to this point, for, let's say, for my soul, it was not individuated. It was the light. It was not the light as my soul. And then after that point, so I started looking at that, and then boop, these entities would pop up, and I would travel forward. I go, okay, whoop, nope, they're gone. Then they show up. Then I'd look at another soul and another soul and another soul. And I did it enough that I started really feeling fairly confident that entities were an artifact of separation, and the illusion of separation, although we experience it when we incarnate, the way that I perceived it at that time, and I haven't really had a perception that contradicts that in the meantime, I haven't really looked at it honestly either, is that separation is a companion along the soul's developmental journey. Even though in its unincarnated expression, perhaps separation itself does not exist, at least not in the way that we experience it as human beings. Okay, hopefully I'm not getting too chewy here with my descriptions. And so at the inception of the soul is the individuated now expression. And if we think of it as a linear expression, that is this lifetime, then this lifetime, then this lifetime, I don't believe that's actually what's happening, because time itself is an illusion. So if the soul is outside of time, you get where I'm going with this. Maybe it's a circular thing. Anyway, whatever it is, at that point, at that inception point, here comes separation. And the point relative to why that was important to me at the time was I could see, here are these entities. And then I started exploring, well, how can we be expressing as an individuated expression of divinity without an experience of entities, without an experience of dark energy? And the answer was yes. And I could see that then as the pure expression of divinity. In other words, the integrated experience of who we really are, rather than having this experience of separation and wholeness, an experience of wholeness. That's a long answer to a simple question. But Susan, you've been here in the circle for a while, so I trust that it is serving you. And if there are further follow-up questions, I'll address them here. But the simple answer is I don't know what that means, except individuated expression of divinity or the one. And when that happened, I don't know. At the beginning, whenever that was for your soul, for my soul. Were all souls expressed at the same time? I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. When I have seen or gone into insight around this, what I have seen is a developmental journey that souls move through in the same way that I perceive we move through a developmental journey in consciousness in the body. Haven't really done a lot of talking about it, haven't written about it. It's exciting stuff, though. Glad you're here, Susan. Thanks for the question. Okay, here's Susan. Susan has 2 comments. You talk about breathing out everything before the inception of the soul, so I wanted to understand this. Yeah, right. Let go of everything that has come since the inception of the soul, meaning let go of everything that has come since then. Yes. And here's the thing that made me laugh. LOL. Whenever I ask a question, I always get more than I bargained for. Thanks, Ken. Seems to be the flavor of my life, Susan. I'm kind of a more than you bargained for kind of person. I think it's fair. Fair point. Let me just kind of sift through. See if there are other questions here. Linda is checking in, I think, from the UK. Lovely to be here live. Thank you for being here. Here's Carol asking a question. Hi, Ken. Will I ever really feel the energies moving within me? It's a great question. It's a beautifully loaded question, isn't it? Because if everything is predicated on the feeling of things, which it sort of seems to be based on the way I talk about it, but I've had a couple of really just beautiful people that I've had a chance to walk with for a number of years, students who were part of a series of successive programs, the most recent of which wrapped up very recently, Embodied Messenger Mastery. And I learned some really profound things from these folks, these 2 women in particular. And boy, am I forever grateful for their insight. So again, ask a simple question. You'll get a simple answer, but the explanation behind it maybe won't be so succinct or simple. The answer to the question is, I don't know. I would have said, had we been having this conversation 4 years ago, 3 years ago, without a doubt, you'll feel it. You'll feel energy moving. And then I would tell stories about how that's true. I would tell you about one of the first people I worked on was I kept asking, can you feel it? Can you feel it? This is literally, I think, the first paid client that I had. I was asking her, do you feel that? This is on the phone. Are you feeling that? And she started swearing at me at the top of her lungs. She said, I've never felt anything in my whole life. And she was so angry. And I'm not laughing because she was angry. I'm laughing at my enthusiasm at the time. And she's like, I don't even know if I believe in what you're doing. And I mean, she was so irritated. And I said to her, look, I don't even know if I believe in it either. And I don't need to ask you that question. I'm so sorry. Right. So I'm going to stop asking this question. And then I proceeded to have this perception with this individual that her chakras had like cement, dried cement over the top of them, all this dust and rock and everything. So I asked this question, God, what am I supposed to do about this with her chakras? And the answer was blow it out. And I went, okay. And I had enough awareness at the time that I was aware of chakras, but I didn't understand the value of going in reverse order, which I've talked about in other videos here on the channel. But anyway, so I started with the first instead of descending from the 7th. Descend from the 7th if you're looking for the greatest possible impact of a chakra tuning process is my suggestion, or at least try it and see what it feels like to you. decide for yourself, of course. So I started with the first in her because I didn't have that awareness, and I started blowing, and we were on the phone, and I hadn't muted my line. I'm looking for the mutes button because I'm such a literal remembering these things literally. Boop! I didn't push the mute button, and she started giggling, and I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "You're tickling my bottom." And of course, the first chakra is at the perineum. So it makes perfect sense that that part of her anatomy would be tickled if she were feeling energy moving. But because she just yelled at me, I stopped asking if she felt anything. I said, "Oh, okay." And then I continued second, third, fourth, all the way up to the seventh. And at the end, she said, "Oh my God, I feel energy moving in my body." I would have given you that example. And there are others that I would give you too. But here's the thing. After these two amazing women in these circles, I have learned that the bodily sensations that I refer to as the outward expression of the inward relationship or inward sign of one's embodiment or connection, experience, relationship with divinity, those are just one possible way that we experience it. There are other sort of, I don't know what I would say, other dimensional kind of dynamics. And I don't have much more to say about it than that. I would say don't hold an attachment to this happening. Be with the experience, whatever it is. It is the divine mystery, capital M, divine mystery, the unknown expression. And I think we would do well to remind ourselves of that in every aspect of our lives, not just relating to whether we're going to have a visceral experience of divinity, meaning felt in the body, but also in other aspects of our lives too. I think I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes I think, well, I know what's about to happen, or I know where we're headed, or I know where I think we should head, or, I hope I understand what it means to unwind racism and transmute racism and open up to a deeper experience of divine love. Would like to think I understand what that means. The reality is I have no idea what that means. Just like I don't know what it is to be deal with racism, to have that experience of being oppressed so profoundly through so many different structures in a society. I don't really know what it means for it not to be there either, or what that looks like, or how we experience that. This is the divine unknown. When we open up to the unknown divine, that experience, visceral or otherwise, can express in and through and as each of us, and does. It's not just that it can, it actually does. And more to the point, I think, especially perhaps as we're addressing challenges that are coming up in our lives, or experiences of dissonance internally within our own relationship with self and with other people and so on, I just speak for myself, it can be easy to get into a judgment dynamic. Oh my gosh, if only I were different than this, or if I'd behaved differently, or I'd been more loving, or whatever it is. Those criteria aren't there either. Divinity is moving through us all the time. The only thing that limits divine expression is our attempt to control. That's it. We have an experience in stage 1 consciousness of disempowered and separate. We have an experience in stage 2 of empowered and separate. Now, huge difference between disempowered and empowered, but still separate. In stage 3, we have an experience of whole and separate. And in stage 4, we have an experience of whole. Now, if you ask somebody who's in physical pain, what would your wholeness feel like? Or they might say, well, I'm not in pain anymore, obviously. And that might be true. You might not be in pain, but you might be. You don't know. If you're attached to the particular expression, it mucks things up. And attachment is a form of control. Long answer, Carol. Great question. I'm happy to follow up with other questions that are coming in. Okay. Wilson, I'm going to put this up. I haven't even read it. God bless you. Continue to fulfill your mission in life, always with good thoughts, good words, good actions for yourself and everything created by God and for God. Because if you do the opposite, you will suffer. We all do. When we do the opposite, we think we are separate from the divine. From my perspective, suffering is an artifact of separation, pain and suffering, both. It's not because God is holding a rod and casting suffering zaps our direction. It's the suffering is of our creation. I believe that God loves us unconditionally, no matter what, in all of our expressions, in all phases of our developmental journey. And the experience we have of suffering is highly instructive for uncovering and opening up to that doorway between stage 2 and 3, where we surrender, where we open up to divinity. We stop trying to control. And then God expresses more fully. God by whatever name. Julie M., let's see. So very grateful for your wisdom and energy today. Overwhelmed by the chaos, cruelty witnessed recently and struggling to find a higher perspective. It makes me cry to think of it. It is so, so I'm glad you're here, Julie. Thank you for your encouraging words and your reflection. And I know what you mean about higher perspective. So here's, and I know you weren't asking a question, you were just making a comment, Julie, but still I want to go here a little bit if I could, if you'll all let me go here for just a moment. The higher perspective, I believe, and I experience this and I witness this in others. And I don't mean I project it like, you're going to have this experience. I mean, I witness it like, ooh, there's God dancing as you. This is how it is. Just my perspective, maybe it's meaningful for you, maybe not. I'd offer it in service to your journey. The higher perspective, that is to say, the experience of greater resonance, maybe we could agree that that's the higher experience. I believe that is a function of actually descending, of moving down. Not just down the body as we descend, as we embody from the top of our heads, perhaps, or even slightly above the top of our heads down into the hips all the way. It also, but the reason why that descension process is that God is underneath everything else. The divine, your wholeness, is underneath these little grains of sand that show up as artifacts of separation. These illusions cast these shadows into our lives. And I don't know, maybe shadow isn't the right metaphor, but anyway, it's the light is getting disrupted, distorted by these grains of sand. And those distortions change how we perceive things. And if the higher perspective is a distortion-free perspective, it happens when we sink in, from my perspective. And when we sink in, we drop below those distortions. We come to the direct experience of who we really are. It's always available. We don't have to transcend our human condition. The pathway, from my perspective, is that we sink into it. That's why I said today, carry whatever those burdens, whatever those wounds are, whatever that resistance. No, I don't want that. I don't want that experience in my life. I want this, but I'm resisting that. Bring all the resistance in, because in the embodied state, if we allow ourselves to feel the stuff we're resisting, to feel that dissonance, the pain, the suffering, the upset, it is transmuted by the divine within you. It's not me casting, zaps of this and that. It really isn't about me. It's about the divine in you, and you allowing yourself to feel that. There's the alchemy between those two perspectives. So thank you for your kind comment, Julie. If I keep responding to people with simple compliments, people will stop commenting, because you're going to like, what is Ken going to get caught up with here? So Gary is saying, that's what I love about you. You deliver more than expected. Thanks, Gary. Oh, that's so good. Okay, Julie, you helped me experience that peace again that I was struggling to reconnect with. Yeah, blessings to you as well. I mean, we're all living in a blessing. Carol says, somehow I know, I somehow know on some level that the energies are there and moving, but I just wanted to see confirmation. Yeah. I mean, this is the journey of faith, isn't it? We want that confirmation. We want that outward sign. And especially when we start realizing how profound the below experience, I think we're all familiar with that ancient wisdom, as below, so as above, so below. From my perspective, it's all about the below. That's really what that wisdom is describing, I believe. That's certainly been my experience. We try to influence the above and get to inner peace that way. It's a mess. We're always chasing, seek, never find, never experience. Go below. We just set aside the outward and the upper experience and come to that deeper inner dynamic. Something profound begins opening up. And the challenge is that when it opens up in the below and we instantly go, well, show me in the above what's happening. Now we're lost. We're caught in separation again. But if we stay in the below, if we stay here within this beautiful opening, this blossom of divine presence, just runs through every part of our being. And we begin experiencing that. Okay, here's a question. This is an interesting question. Hi, Willie, how are you? My name's Ken. I'm Ken. I want to know if we're reading Genesis right. I don't know. How are you reading Genesis? And here's the deal. How would I know what the right interpret? I could tell you how I interpret Genesis, but I don't want to. I want you to be with your experience of the Bible or whatever the sacred text is. I'm interested in supporting you. I mean, I'm happy to interpret and so on. But the thing that's most interesting to me is that I want to, I feel called to support you in deepening your intimate relationship with the divine on your terms. Bruce is saying, just stumbled upon your channel. Sounds very interesting. I'm a Sikh. I belong to a religion called Sikhism, the 5th largest major religion. We believe in pantheism. Yes, beautiful. Bruce goes on. I want to say more. Glad you're here, by the way. Bruce, Sikhs believe that God is an energy and then we can connect to the divine as God is within everyone. Beautiful. Yes, I think... and so Bruce says, I just wanted to ask if you've heard of Sikhism. I have heard of Sikhism. I have sat with many Sikhs over time, and I'm so grateful that you're here, Bruce. Honored you stumbled across this channel. I hope if you haven't already that you'll subscribe and become part of this community and sit together and resonate. Indeed, I believe we can find the divine in everyone and everything. And to Bruce and everyone sitting here, I think those who have been part of the community, maybe even prior to the YouTube channel or just stumbled across the channel and gotten active or on Facebook or wherever, I'm not coming from a particular perspective. For me, divinity has many different meanings, and I'm interested and feel called to support the gathering of us all in divine resonance. And I just use divine as the placeholder for that. And I know that we have people from I hope we have every tradition. I certainly am inspired by that. I think that all traditions have something meaningful to offer, something significant. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. Carol says, I'll let go of this control. Beautiful. I think something more profound will open up. It's amazing. 70% of Americans don't know what Sikhism is. I imagine that's true. And I am familiar with it. What's sort of weird, well, there are probably a lot of things that are weird about me, Bruce, but one of the things that's weird is that look, I grew up in a tradition. I grew up as a Roman Catholic, but left Catholicism behind as a teen. It didn't feel right to me. My exploration of spirituality has taken place outside of a tradition since then. And I mean, I was a mortgage lender in 2007 when somebody said to me at a meditation retreat, hey, you ought to be working as a healer. I started sobbing uncontrollably. Didn't know what the word healer meant. It's been a journey. It's been an extraordinary journey. Still haven't done any formal study, just have continually come across the rich expression of the range of divine relationships that we have available on the planet. It's really extraordinary. I'm honored you're here. Bruce said one more thing. Yes, I subscribed. It's an honor to be connected with you in this way, Bruce. Okay, I think I'm responding to the questions that are coming in. I just want to thank everyone for commenting and so on. Let's sink in a little bit. Before we do, I'm going to say this again. I just did this little ad for subscribe. So I'm going to do it again before we make this shift. And so here's what's going to happen for the rest of our time together. We're going to sink into transmission without me doing a lot of talking. I'll talk as much as I'm guided to. And the amount of talking I tend to do in a open session like this, no criteria, no prerequisite or anything where just anyone can wander in. That's the whole point, right? Tell your friends, tell your family, whomever, everyone who would seek to be part of this or be interested in this experience would love to share this. In this dynamic, I probably do quite a bit more talking than I do once a circle sort of formally comes together. And I want to talk about a couple of circles. But before I do, I just want to say, anyone who's not yet subscribed, I would be just honored if it resonates with you, if you're interested, if you subscribe. And as I say, it doesn't matter the platform you're on, the description below the video includes a link to subscribe to YouTube. Some interesting dynamics going on, if I could be so blunt, in Facebook right now. And so I'm just focused on YouTube, but I'm also, obviously, I've got a community on Facebook. I want to stay engaged there. But as for new subscriptions, let's do it on YouTube and see what happens there. The second thing I want to say is that there are two super accessible, at least I hope they are, accessible circles that are available for anyone to participate with. And I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to put a link up and then we'll go into transmission. I won't say much more about any of this stuff all the way through the end. One is the residence community. We meet once a month. It's audio only. So we're sitting on a teleconference line, just my voice. There's a formal teaching, a transmission, and Q&A every month, once a month. You could be an annual member. It's $80 a year, and you get the entire past library. The residence community has been going on for, I think, more than 2 years now. So there are 24 plus prior sessions, individual programs that have been formed out of those sessions. $80 a year can participate in those sessions. Get you the live session as well as the entire library, or you could do $10 a month if that's better, more resonant for you, in which case you get the live session you can download last month, but not the library. And then the other option, and the residence community has been going on for a couple of years, it's going to continue to go on. The other thing that I'm doing right now is a deep dive workshop. And if you think about what we're doing here in just a few moments, if this is your first time, you're going, God, let's just do it, Ken. Okay, we'll do it. Hang on just a sec. I want to explain something very, very quickly. I think we're sinking in beneath all the, if you want to think about it as an ocean metaphor, the choppiness up at the surface, what the weather is there, what's going on. We're sinking down below the level where light is streaming in. We're getting into that dark space where the only source of light is within you, and you're starting to have that experience. That's what I mean by sink in. Sink into the peace, sink into the divine within. Deep dive is that in a very formal way, formal in the sense that there's a quick teaching at the beginning, and then we're in silent, almost exclusively silent transmission for between an hour, hour and a half. And then there's an opportunity for Q&A. It's video based, but exclusively to subscribers. We do that twice a month, every other week. We're doing it tomorrow. Deep Dive 6 is tomorrow. And with your membership, you also get the past sessions. So you get all the earlier deep dives. Plus, I do a couple other bonus sessions on the Saturday after the deep dive. So this coming Saturday, there's a Q&A. And you wouldn't believe the conversations we have there. Again, it's video. You're on with video or audio. We're talking. The community's talking. Everyone in the circle's talking. It's an awesome group. It's $97 a month. If you're interested in participating in either of those, I want to make you aware of them, and I'm including a link right now. Let's stand at commercials. Let's have an experience of the divine within, shall we? Deep breath in. Hold. Releasing this breath. and opening up to the unknown, to the divine. Out to the count of 8. Another deep breath in. Hold. And as you release this breath, opening up to the divine mystery in every part of your life. Out to the count of 8. Deep breath in. Hold. As you release this breath now, opening to the divine mystery for whatever burdens you carried into our time together today. The divine fire to consume, not by intention, because that's what it is. You don't have to do anything. Just feel fully. The shorthand would be feel fully all the yucky stuff. This could sound really counterproductive. If you're in an empowered / separate dynamic, you might be thinking, why would I feel the yucky stuff? I want to hold some powerful intention in my mind to change things. You don't have to do that. You do not have to carry the burden of your life. Your life, in fact, is not a burden. It may have felt like one. It may feel like one. You may be carrying a tremendous burden around. The divine expression through you lifts, transmutes, consumes, and expresses as everything. So for now, the invitation, the opportunity is to set aside those intentions, set aside that control, and feel whatever crappy stuff is coming up to be felt. The stuff you've been suppressing and holding back on. Here, it can be transmuted. And the peace that follows is beyond language. It's not a function of anything I'm doing or that you're doing. You're just being who you are, just like I'm being who I am. And there is the divine expressing everywhere. Another deep breath in and hold. As you begin releasing this breath now, opening to the divine mystery in every part of the world. Not that you have to hold the world in your awareness. Think of the world as you. Just divine mystery everywhere. Not projected, not thought of, not an intention. not clarity for what it means. Maybe it's a fog that descends, a cloud that descends over the planet. What was known is now unknown. What could be seen is unseen. The path forward previously was so clear, and now it's obscured. Beautiful. We are detaching from what we have been attached to on whatever level. I know God. I know what God's plan is for me. I know how this is supposed to go. Let go of all of that. Open up to something bigger than what you can know or imagine. It's unknown. It's unimaginable. It's beyond your ability to comprehend. And yet, it expresses through you. You, in fact, are an instrument for that expression. You are a conduit, a channel through which that expression comes first and foremost into your being, into your body and your mind, and then into your life. And last, but not because you ever focused on it, but because the river is headed to the sea, no matter what, that light expressing in the world. The river is flowing. Be the river. Be. All that talking might have brought a focus into the mind. And if that's where you're at, it's understandable. Just remind yourself with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest aspects on every level, known and unknown. The artifacts of dissonance appearing to leave, they are transmuted. You are expressing as the undistorted extension and expression of divinity, but not because I named it or said it. Certainly didn't hold an intention. It's just who you are. We could hold an intention that the river flow downhill, or we could drop the intention. Either way, the river's flowing. We could forget that the river even exists or the peace we felt by its side. Still, the river flows. We could walk away and never again visit. Still, the river is flowing. So, too, with each breath, the divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The invitation to each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The river is flowing. If you're in your heart feeling that warm love, that sense of connection, it's beautiful. I invite you to release that and drop further into the hips. And what does that mean? What does that feel like? Just be with it, whatever it means, whatever it feels like. And if some noise, some dissonance comes up to be felt, feel it. That's where the alchemy takes place. Not in the thinking, not in the feeling, in the being. And where are you being? In your hips. You don't need to strive for your hips. You don't need to push down any more than a river or a stream pushes downhill. The river will eventually get to the sea. You will eventually embody fully in the hips. The river is flowing. You don't have to control it. You don't have to think it there. You don't have to feel it there. It is. Just be. Be with whatever is coming up. Be with it fully. Allow yourself to express it emotionally, physically, however it shows up. There may be grief. There may be rage. There may be laughter. There may be pain. It might feel like a potential encounter with the thing you've resisted your whole life, and that's probably true. Stop resisting it now. Allow it to be transmuted. Feel it. Set yourself free. If you find yourself checking, "Oh, where am I now?" Don't worry about it. Just be. Be with the feeling, not the heart feeling, the sensation, the emotion. If there are thoughts that are coming up, you can remind yourself with each breath you are connected and the river is flowing. And then let the thoughts be whatever they are. If there's pain or anguish or hurt, and it is coming from a place that is unfamiliar or new or has no reference from your life, it's okay. Just let it express. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to understand it. You just have to feel it. If you're ready, if you're willing, if this is the right time. Mhm. Mm. A few things to just remind you of as we continue to sink in. Staying or returning to a well hydrated state is really important when you're doing this kind of work. You might be thinking, this doesn't feel like work, Ken. Not like any work I've ever done before. And it may be different. It's big work, big, big work. You could think of it as energetic or spiritual work, but it doesn't need to be labeled, just supported by you. And there are a couple ways to powerfully support what is unfolding within you. And one of them is to be well hydrated with water or perhaps some other healthy fluid or liquid. Another way to support this is to honor what comes up for your body. Maybe that's to go out and dance or move your body and get a walk. Many people have said over the years, I feel really worn out. And then they expect it to just go away. And just be with it. If you feel like resting more than you ever have, you haven't done something wrong. Something powerful is going on. There's a deeper level of soul embodiment happening. There's a lot of stuff integrating. The work continues. Support it. If you're doing this with loved ones or friends, it's fun to talk about, fun to reflect on. Hey, what was your experience in session? And that can be instructive, but be with your experience because it's the only one that matters. Someone else's experience is theirs, yours is yours. And yours might be, didn't feel any emotion, felt nothing in my body, nothing's going on, I'm not thirsty, not tired. Perfect. Whatever it is, it really is perfect. Just be with it, honor it. And so if your body is asking for rest, if you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to bed hours before I normally do it. If you can. If you can. And there are other things you can do. There are a whole series of these sessions. If being part of the resonance community or the deep dive isn't an option right now, or you just like to explore this more, tons of free resources here on YouTube and on my website, kenwstone.com. There's a newsletter there. There's all sorts of different stuff. Just wonderful, wonderful resources to support you. Lots are free, some are paid, whatever works. It's all good. And you could just listen to this session again. You may find it's different each time you listen to it. You may think, I thought he talked about something totally different. Just be with the divine mystery. Be with whatever your experience is. Ultimately, your relationship with the divine on your terms in ways that are meaningful to you, that's what matters most. Not what I think happens there. From my perspective, not what anyone else thinks happens there. It's your experience. It's your relationship. It is sacred in ways that are impossible to put to words from my perspective. I honor that. I respect that. I am so grateful for the privilege of sitting with you in this way today. It's fun exploring with words and answering questions, and it's fun for me to laugh at myself. It's fun for me to giggle with you. Sometimes there are tears. Whatever it is, it's all good from my perspective. Thank you for making yourself part of the circle and for being present with your own interior experience, whatever it is, not just here, but in the entirety of your life. What a gift you give yourself to be present. When the soul is embodied, from my perspective, that is the precondition, the criteria for presence, to be present. Soul embodiment leads to presence. And in presence is everything. When you're ready, I just invite you to begin returning that universal plug. I'll do the same as I begin wrapping up the transmission, bringing it to a close for today. Remember, stay hydrated. Honor what your body is asking for. Allow yourself to feel whatever comes up. And this session is a resource that you can come back to again and again. It's free. Plug all the way in. Transmission to a close now. So grateful for the opportunity to sit with you, to resonate, to explore, to be. Anything coming up to reflect on or share, please do so in the comments section. Live stream or on replay, I'll interact with you. The chance to explore together is such an amazing opportunity from my perspective. It's one I think is such a sacred and extraordinary opportunity. So thank you for including me in your life in this way. If this video has resonated with you, please do give it a thumbs up or a like or whatever the platform equivalent is. And I'll look forward to being back with you again next Wednesday for another community virtual circle and exploration with meditation, Q&A, and transmission. Until we're together again very soon. Bye for now. Peace.